So I'm excited to talk to you about what the Flow Builder team has been up to with Winter 23. This is a really, really busy slide. We've been hard at work delivering a ton of new features for you, covering screen flows, record-triggered flows, as well as some enhancements for all Flow Builder users. But I obviously have about 10 minutes to talk to you, not 3 hours. So we're not going to go into depth on all of these today. Instead, we're going to kick off a demo in a minute or so, and we're going to highlight a handful of these, but I'll talk to you later about ways you can learn about more of them. So today, I'm mainly going to be focusing on the combined power of Lightning Web Components and Flow. On the Flow Builder team, we love LWC. We built our builder on it in 2019, and most of it is still built on LWC today. We're slowly working out all the Aura gaps still. We also, with Winter 23, are transitioning everyone's runtime UI to a fully LWC-based runtime. But it's not just about what we build, it's about what you all build. And we're so excited by how much the community has put together with screen components, adding the awesome sophistication of Lightning Web Components into your screens. However, it's been a long time since we released the Aura Lightning Flow component, and then LWC came out. So I've often been asked, when are we going to have it the other way around? When are we going to be able to embed a screen flow into an LWC? And I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that it is now available with Winter 23. Woo! Yes. You all may have seen this in the developer keynote, but we are definitely going to get into a demo today. As of now, you can use the new Lightning Flow LWC, Lightning Dash Flow, as you'll see in a minute, to embed those screen flows into your Lightning Web Components. But Mohit, let's kick it off with the demo. All right. So here we are in Pulsar Motors. At Pulsar Motors, quality is the name of the game. No vehicle makes it onto our showroom unless we are completing all of these inspections. Now, we created this vehicle inspection checker. It's a custom LWC to walk those specialists through this process. And we know that you don't necessarily go through the vehicle in the same order every time. Something may catch your eye. So we specifically built this checker to be nonlinear, so you can fill it out organically as you have things to report. Mohit, let's go ahead and start that engine inspection. So here we have a screen flow launched from a Lightning Web component in a modal. Before we move forward on this flow, I actually want to talk about a couple of things that are not the Lightning Flow component. These are new enhancements to all Flow Builder users who are building screen flows in Winter 23. The first is that lookup. Mohit didn't stop. Existing lookup component now supports multiple selections. You can just set what is the maximum number of items you want your users to select now. And that's a data table on the screen, but this is not something we installed or built ourselves. This is available out of the box in Flow Builder as a beta component with Winter 23. We're so excited. And one of the things that we're excited about is that formulas are just resolved. So these images, they're just beautiful and spiff up your screens really nicely. All right, so let's talk about what the flow is actually doing here. We've got, with that lookup, we've selected what parts did we inspect of the engine. And then with this data table, what parts did we replace? So as Mohit identifies, we replaced the carburetor and the motor mounts. We're going to move on. And now we're going to select, OK, so for those replacements, what tools did we use to make the replacement? That's another data table, no images this time. Let's move on to the final screen. We're going to enter some last details. There's also an Easter egg. This is not new, this release, but I wanted to remind you all, you can control the navigation labels in your screen flows and give beautiful context to the users who are walking through. This means that I know exactly what's going to happen when I click this button. So let's complete the engine inspection. A bunch of things happen. The modal closes. There's a toast message that fires to let users know what happened. The engine item is marked off on the checklist, and the inspect button is hidden, so we don't get any duplicate reports. And I feel really productive because that completion percentage incremented. Awesome. All right, I know this is a developer preview, and I promise we will look at that LWC code. But first, let's take a look at the flow that we just went through. Now, a minute ago, I talked about we got a list of replacement parts, we made some selections, and then for those replacement parts, we needed to find the tools to select what tools were used for that replacement. If anyone here has solved a similar related records problem or tried to with Flow Builder, you probably ended up with something that looks like this, where we have a loop, and inside of that loop, we are doing a query, and I'm sure many people in this room are shuddering because this is really unscalable design. We're going to hit our socket limits really, really quickly. But I actually have a secret to share with you. This is not the flow we used, or the latest version that we used, at least, for this engine inspection. Let's switch and show them the new one. So as you can see, there's no loop anywhere on this screen. And that is with the newest superpower for people who are building scalable flows, which I hope is everyone in this room using Flow Builder, the in operator. Let's show them, Mohit. Awesome. So in our get records, we see we have an in operator selected. There's also a not in operator available. You're going to find this in the record filters section of any get records, update records, and delete records elements. So what we're doing specifically here for this use case is we have that in that value, we have a list of engine part IDs that came from what the user selected in that first data table. And we're using the get records to find any vehicle inspection tool whose engine part field matches some ID in that list. And that's everything. Before we wrap up looking at this flow, I wanted to draw your attention to this Apex action right before on the canvas. So what this is doing is kind of solving a gap that we have right now. So the data table is always going to output a list of records. The in operator in Flow today supports primitive collections. So we needed to basically transform that data table record collection into a list of IDs that the in operator could deal with. But you may notice there's something else going on this Apex action. It's a gingerbread man. That's a very unusual look for an element. This is another Easter egg from last release, I believe, custom icons for Apex actions. This means that, again, you can provide context to the people who are using, in this case, your Apex actions to build out processes in Flow Builder so that when they look at their canvas, they know exactly what's going to happen in that node. Now, let's actually show them how they add custom icons. So here we are in our invocable method annotation for that Apex class. This is familiar to some of you today, at least from Chris's demo that we saw earlier. The one difference here is that in the method annotation, we're adding the icon name attribute. And we're setting this to a static resource where we uploaded our SVG. That's the main rule to keep in mind. If you want to bring your own custom icon, make sure it's an SVG. You can upload a static resource and reference it here, or you can reference an SLDS utility icon if one of those fits your purpose. And now we have smoothly segued into the code segment of this presentation, and that's where we're going to stay. So yeah, we're going to talk about that LWC. The first thing I wanted to draw your attention to is this C-modal component. So we've built our own custom one, but there is a standard component coming in October for those of you who want to replace your custom modals. We couldn't use it here today because this entire demo is on production. But we're going to talk for the rest of this time about that Lightning Flow component, the star of the show. So the Lightning Flow LWC has complete parity with what we had with the Lightning Flow Aura component. And what we're doing here is first, with that Flow API name attribute, telling the component what flow to run. And now we're passing in the flow name dynamically so that we don't have to repeat this HTML over and over again for every item in that checklist. Next, we're setting the values for any of the flow's input variables to provide that beautiful context that I love and I hope you all do too. And then finally, with the onStatus change event handler, we are going to be capturing any outputs from the flow and status changes. But none of this is hard-coded, as you can see, so we're going to go and check out the JavaScript to see what's happening. We're going to start in the connected callback. This is where we are figuring out what flow should we start based on what inspect button was clicked. So when someone clicks the inspect button for the engine item, like we did today, we have a mapping to the engine_inspection flow. If we had instead clicked the inspect button for the suspension item, we would have started the suspension inspection flow. If we scroll a bit further down, we're going to see how we're setting values for those input variables. Now, every flow in this checklist just needs the same context. It's what is the vehicle that this component was embedded on. So we're able to set that globally for every flow called from this component. And lastly is our finish handler. So we're detecting when the flow status is updated to finish. And at that point, those 4 things we saw earlier are going to happen. We're closing the modal. We're firing that toast message to notify the user. And then we are marking that item complete, hiding the inspect button, and incrementing that progress indicator. And that wraps up my demo today of Lightning Flow. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see what awesome stuff you all